Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. Have you ever felt like your voice or opinion did not matter? Did you ever feel that way because you are a woman, a renter, because you're Black, Latina, lesbian, gay, or in a wheelchair? I have. It wasn't until I was able to build a village around me that I felt empowered to begin to take my own seat at the table and embark on my journey of civic engagement and leadership. That's why Oak Park needs you.
We are the Civic Engagement Team, and we are so excited to present our work to you today. I'm Deb Goldstein, this is Christina Waters, Cheryl Wisniewski, Rob Pabone, and Diane Stanky.
Just getting started. So what is civic engagement and why is it so important? Well, civic engagement really is about getting involved in your community. It's about being part of the democratic process. It's a collective of people bigger than ourselves that want to make a difference in our community. Civic engagement is so important because it provides a platform to shed those biases and to build trust and to build understanding amongst community members, hopefully to build a more stronger, a more engaged, a more connected community, a more desirable community in which to live in. It's important because it breaks down barriers and trust and understanding, and it positively impacts our community, our quality of life in our community, both politically and non-politically processes.
Oak Park has quite a few opportunities to become engaged. For example, we have 6 taxing bodies. Within those 6 taxing bodies, we have 40 elected or appointed positions. That's a lot. We also have 35 citizen-led commissions and committees. Those commissions many times are the pipeline into those elected and appointed positions.
So what are we seeing when we look at the current makeup of elected boards and commissions? There has been some progress in getting women and Black and brown people involved, but we still have one elected board that is 100% white. And Oak Park only just elected its 3rd woman of color as trustee. The commissions are even less diverse than the boards, with estimates at over 80% white participation. Gender and race are 2 important markers, but in order for our civic leaders to truly reflect our community, we need to broaden our definition of diversity. For example, fully 42% of housing units are rental in Oak Park, and we would really like to see renters more involved in civic leadership. Basically, there is a need for developing a wide and diverse bench, or pipeline, or bullpen. Choose your metaphor, they all work.
So why is diversity so important anyway? I would think that a lot of us have already kind of formulated an opinion on that and from experience, but we know that the intangible measures, we know those, we know the qualitative, but what are those quantitative measures? We can see on the next slide, we have at least 10 reasons that multiple studies have shown that higher levels of diversity leads to a variety of perspectives, increased engagement, reduced turnover, productivity, etc. I won't read them all to you. But this is whether it's an elected body, whether it's a commission, or whether it's a business. Diversity is crucial in terms of production. So diversity helps to de-bias complex decisions and helps reduce groupthink. Allies, of course, to underrepresented communities are important, but cannot replace those voices at the table. No matter how woke you think you are, you really cannot replace the voices at that table, given that they do not have the same lived experiences within the community. So we've been talking a lot about diversity, and the second side of that same coin is inclusion, and diversity should never be tokenism. Unless traditionally underrepresented communities are both at the table and are heard and listened to, nothing will change. So without representation, it's easy to think that your voice doesn't matter. It can lead to anger, frustration, and apathy. Diversity provides different areas of expertise and community connections and create a legislative body that represents everyone. No representation often leads to public officials making decisions for communities that they do not understand and know little about, which leads to Exhibit A, B, C, D, E, etc. This is a picture. We had a lot of options of 13 older white gentlemen making decisions on healthcare policy that had to do primarily with maternal and child health.
So who is often underrepresented? To be clear, people of color, women, LGBTQIA, folks, people with disabilities, renters, as was mentioned earlier, low to moderate income households, and young adults. When we were working on this project, we wanted to uncover some of the barriers to civic engagement because it's really important to think about when folks are not able to enter the process, what is stopping them, what is holding them back. One of the major areas we found was lack of awareness. So this means an individual might not know where to start or where to begin, where to go to kind of create change or to learn about the issues. Another one that we found was lack of role models. Now I want to be clear with this. This does not mean that there's a lack of role models necessarily in the household, in the community, at the school level, but there is a lack of role models in political life for folks to connect to relate to, that is also related to the demographic of the community. Another a couple of examples were kind of tied to personal barriers, maybe lack of confidence, also lack of trust, fear of being tokenized, which was mentioned earlier. It's one thing to have a seat at the table, but to have a voice is a totally different situation. And then we talked about equity and looking at this through an equitable lens. Lack of transportation, childcare, those things really do make an impact and can deny someone access to being a participant civically. One that we've seen across this, United States, especially, is this entrenched kind of network politically, locally, especially where folks are kind of blocked out. The same people are nominated. These might be individuals that have the same thoughts, the same beliefs, the same views. And it doesn't allow new ideas to come in, different perspectives. And so we mentioned that as well.
Let's look at how one community is addressing a major barrier. Svante Myrick, the mayor of Ithaca, New York, noticed that the city is much younger and less white than the meeting room. This fact was haunting him. Those are his own words, and he was really moved to act. So what did he do? He pushed the city to offer free childcare at all city meetings. Now you can imagine how this would really increase the likelihood that younger, less wealthy, and single parents would participate in the civic meetings. This program just started on May 1st in Ithaca, so we don't have any results, but we are really excited about this bold step.
And so what is the mission of Oak Park Needs You? We want to provide information, support, and community to encourage underrepresented people to get involved in the Oak Park and River Forest community by way of elected and appointed positions, as well as through commission and committee involvement.
So what we're proposing is a three-pronged approach to Oak Park Needs You. First, we want to organize a grassroots steering committee, and then we want to develop resources, and then finally, we want to do community outreach and recruitment. And we're going to explain each one of those steps.
So the Oak Park Needs You Steering Committee is going to be grassroots focused, separate from any power structures or any other institutions. It is also going to be inclusive of organizations and entities that are already doing this work. We did a lot of research and we found some folks that are doing good work around this already, and we wanted to make sure that they were at the table with us. The committee is going to collaborate with organizers from the Activist Toolkit and the Community Involvement Commission. For those of you that don't know what the Activist Toolkit is, it is a voter education tool. And then in terms of the Community Involvement Commission, they are facilitators of a screening and recommendation process. What we found very interesting throughout this is that they even mentioned to us how they found a lack of diversity in their processes and in the candidates that were going through. And so that legitimized for us our mission and made us feel like we were on the right track to getting more people involved. Another big aspect of this is that we want it to be sustainable. So we want this to continue to grow. And so the steering committee will also be kind of charged with seeking funding.
And so how are we going to get the word out? Two different ways. We're going to have print material as well as digital resources. The digital resources are going to live in places like Facebook, the Activist Toolkit, as Rob mentioned, digital backpack. Anybody a D97 parent in the building? Anyone at all? You know digital backpack very well. And also a community calendar. So that's going to house dates, due dates and deadlines for voter registration, signature requirements, and various workshops. Printed materials you'll be able to find in places like the Oak Park Public Library, as well as coffee houses locally, and PEPSIDA drop-off and pickups.
And finally, community outreach. I'm sure most of you are aware that there are so many different organizations here in Oak Park and River Forest that serve unrepresented residents of our community. And we've identified so many of them here. And what we would like to do is basically use that group to identify and to recruit potential community leaders. And we want to organize group attendance at various committee and commission meetings. For those that lack the confidence to attend these meetings alone or really don't understand the processes or whatever, for whatever reason, to provide some support. We also want to provide some assistance for those who want to apply for these committees or commissions, as well as it can be very daunting to get signatures on petitions to run for office, so we also want to provide assistance for that as well. Bottom line, we really just want to address any kind of barriers or troubleshoot any kind of roadblocks to civic involvement.
So let's get to the outcomes for Oak Park Meets You. Short term is all about learning. Learning for the steering committee about what is working and what isn't. But for those participating, we really want to increase their knowledge and help them gain confidence in regard to becoming more civically engaged. We want them to report feeling that running for office or volunteering for a commission is not only a tangible goal, but is a desirable goal. And we want to increase their understanding of how to navigate those pathways towards civic leadership. Bottom line, we want everyone to feel that running for office or participating in these commissions and committees is for them and they are right for it.
So although the short-term outcomes are more focused on individuals and more focused on learning and building skills, our midterm outcomes are a little different. We really want to have outcomes that are actionable and measurable. One of the things we want to do is we want to increase the number of people who actually run for office here in Oak Park and in River Forest. Another thing we want to do is increase the number of applications for our commissions and our committees, knowing that by doing that, we're building this bench, because normally people who, or in many situations, people who are on the commissions and the committees eventually run for office. And then finally, we want to aim to increase the ability of members of underrepresented groups to advocate for themselves and for their families through civic involvement.
And our long-term outcomes for us are connected to changing condition. This is a metric that we really can't measure, but that we would want the full participation of underrepresented groups of people in Oak Park to feel like they belong, to feel like they have a voice, to feel like they can come to the table and enact change and make an impact. Besides that, like our goal, our second phase of this, would be to share this model with other communities, to share it with outside communities, Berwyn, Cicero, the Austin area, to get people involved and so they can help and assist to amplify civic engagement in their area for the groups that don't have a voice currently. Thank you.
And so you ask the question again, why is Oak Park needs you imperative? Because democracy only works when everyone participates. Thank you.